Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to TECspertZ, our next edition of a sports roundup featuring baseball here today. I am Anthony. I have a show Inside the Lines, 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Mondays and Fridays, to be sure to tune into that. Everything more in sports. To my right, we have...
I'm Daniel Shepard. I'm the sports chief for the East Carolinian, so just make sure you pick up your papers Tuesday, Thursday, boxes around campus and online.
I'm Eric Fisher. I have a show on WZMB called Buzzer Beater on Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 5, where we look over basketball but other ECU sporting events as well.
I'm Jess. I'm a sports writer for the East Carolinian, and I cover football, baseball primarily.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. And as we're going to talk about this episode, our first episode here, talking about the baseball season right around the corner, as we have our opening weekend this weekend against William and Mary. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're looking forward to it. We very much are. Hopefully the weather will be just fine, as we have potential rain in the forecast. Going to be a little chilly as well, so make sure to go out there and support your Pirates. But this last year's team, 47-18, a great team last year, record-setting 20 wins in the conference, Daniel. I mean, this is a lot of expectations this year, almost in a way, because of the success last year. Having said that, a lot of freshmen, a very young team.
Right. Got knocked out in the Super Regional to Louisville. Sent 7 players to the major leagues and was drafted by professional franchises. 18 new guys this year, a lot of freshmen, a lot of good freshmen. Zach Agnos jumps off the page, younger brother of Jake. Carson Wisenhunt making an impact early. Just a lot of intriguing talent on this team, even though they are young. For this upcoming season. For
sure, and you still have the kind of veteran presence of Tyler Smith and Matt Bridges kind of making his appearance back, led by Burleson and Cooch Manor, so definitely a lot to look forward to here. And like you kind of said, 7 players to the Major League Draft last year, so very much looking forward to that. So far, what we know is the opening weekend rotation will be Burleson, it will be Tyler Smith, and then closing out on Sunday will be Jay Cooch Manor. Gentlemen, what do you think about this outlook for this weekend? Thoughts?
I mean, I think they should win these games. I think being at home too, opening weekend, it'll be a more confident, boosting games going in against William and Mary, and it's just going to be a good atmosphere. So I expect them to perform well and see Burleson pitch well.
I have very similar thoughts, but that being said, you can't just overlook any opponent. This is the opening weekend. A lot of these new guys, young guys, have got to be, get the feel of the game. Get the feel of what it's like being at this new stage at ECU. Got to get, right back into things. That being said, I do think we should be able to clean sweep this weekend. And
again, this is a very youthful, young team. Kind of get the nerves out this weekend for sure. A team that had an average of 6.69 runs per game last season on the offensive side of the ball. Can you see similar production here this year?
I think so. I mean, Thomas Francisco is a year older. You got Alec Burleson obviously going into his draft year. I mentioned Wisenhunt earlier, Carson Wisenhunt. He can hit the ball out pretty easily.
Connor Norby.
Right, yeah. Christian Smallwood.
Sure.
Probably going to start the season injured. He's got a little bit of a finger injury. But
Lane Hoover's also on-base machine, so
right. Yeah, and,
that's always good.
Zach Agnos will be getting the start at third base more than likely on opening day. He's more of a gap-to-gap guy, two-way player. So it'll be interesting to see. I know they don't usually hit a lot of home runs. I know Washer led the team last year with 17. He's gone. So it'll be interesting to see who can step up and provide that constant source of power this year for the Pirates.
Again, I mean, the middle of the lineup kind of lost a lot of the power. You have Washer, Packard, Brickhouse all gone to the MLB draft. And so that is really a big toll on the offense side of the ball. But again, this offense, young offense, led by a lot of freshmen, is going to be quite the test to see, and I'm curious how they do. Now, my next question would be pitching side, some of the guys maybe in the back end of the bullpen, how confident are we think that they are going to do the job, this weekend and beyond?
I think it's just also just getting kind of the rust off early in the season, and I think they will perform at a good level and continue how they performed last year and just being a good solid team. But I think you will see just kind of a bit of a drop off early on in the season, just because that's just getting nerves out. But I think it'll still perform at a good level.
I once again agree. I think Burleson's really going to step up this year. I think he's going to show some of these younger guys what it takes, to be pitching at the college level, and I think they're going to have to, get back into the swing of things. No pun intended there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a slow start, but I do think they're going to probably around a quarter of the way in, they're really going to hit their stride.
And how do you feel about the back end of the bullpen here?
Well, I know earlier in the season, Coach Godwin talked about they're deeper on the mound than he feels like they ever have been before. You got about 20 pitchers, and that don't even count the two-way guys. You got Nate Nabholz. I know he pitched 3 innings on Sunday in the scrimmages after Kuchmaner. Looked really good. Guys like Dylan Lawson. And even JUCO guys like Elijah Gill got a shot to be a midweek starter. Garrett Saylor from last year, returner, going to be a sophomore this year. Yep. Just a lot of guys that maybe they're not as proven as some of the older guys, but have an opportunity to make a real impact this season.
For sure. And Jess, I know you mentioned Burleson here. Cliff Godwin had mentioned at Media Day about a week or two ago about limiting the workload on Burleson a little bit here because he's a two-way player. He has a lot of weight on his shoulders. How do you think they're going to monitor that early on in the season? He says that he wants to kind of lighten the load a little bit, at least early on.
Right. Well, you mentioned the depth, and obviously that relieves some of the workload on him, at least as a pitcher. I know it's not an ideal situation that he's starting this game on Friday. Ideally, you want him to relieve, to be a closer, and to maybe play left field for a lot. But I'd expect maybe 4 or 5 innings out of him, maybe keep his pitch count down, DH him. That being said, probably keep him out of the lineup one day this weekend, maybe bring him in to pinch hit late. But just really keeping him rested for the stretch run and conference play and hopefully eventually the playoffs.
Right, later down the road,
right,
for sure. Gentlemen?
I think when the team gets healthier too over time, it was kind of slow roll of him starting and pitching early on, and I think that's just a thing that's going to happen throughout the season. They'll get more healthy, obviously, with time and just healing. But yeah, I think it's just going to take time. That's really it with it.
Keeping Burleson out, limiting him a bit, particularly early in the season, I think that's going to be a smart move because he is easily their best two-way player. I mean, last season he batted around a 370, and he's going to be very important as a veteran presence on this team to be there at bat and on the mound. So limiting him early, showing what guys can, what they can do, where in the lineup maybe certain guys need to be moved to, who's going to be in the rotation primarily. I think they really do need to get a feel for that, and I think limiting Burleson will help them do that.
And so now early on in the season so far, we kind of have a little bit of injury notice to keep aware of. Gavin Williams, the big man on the mound, has a bit of a finger issue going on, as well as Christian Smallwood. In addition, I know Christian Jane has been kind of bothered with some hamstring troubles. As far as you kind of want to have these almost problems early now, right, rather than kind of bite you in the wrong way later on in the season.
Absolutely. I know Christian Jane has looked good this spring. I know Godwin said he wants to use him as a utility outfielder. Sounds like Gavin Williams will have an X-ray on Wednesday, and the same with Smallwood to kind of assess their injuries. But he said Gavin will not pitch this weekend. We'll still see about Smallwood. Maybe he can come off the bench late and get some at-bats. But like you said, it's just good to have – not necessarily good, but –
injuries are never good.
Right.
Yeah. But have them early now.
If you're going to have them early in the season.
Yeah, definitely not down the stretch.
Right,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, too, I think with that is, there's no need to rush him back early on, I think. And, you don't want to just push these players again before conference play, and especially down the stretch. So I think they just let him heal up until they get to 100%, put him back in the lineup.
The absolute worst thing you can do for a player in any sport is force him back too early. So they're going to want to probably, because it's the beginning of the season here, maybe even give them, a little too much rest rather than try to force him back into the lineup.
Another good thing here that time is almost on their side, I guess, in a way, and a positive out of this is that they kind of start the season here, the Pirates, a lot of games at home. So not much travel going on. I don't think they travel to, maybe sometime in March. They pretty much have a lot of time here in February at home. So it's good that they have a lot of time here in Greenville at Clark LeClaire. And so that's a positive here to take out of it.
Right. Always a good environment in Clark LeClaire. Good crowd atmosphere. It's always nice when you don't have to travel out of the state a whole lot the first month and a half. To kind of get your feet under you and get some guys healthy and get a rotation and a lineup and
kind of get all the questions answered. For sure.
Out,
Oh yeah, especially since travel is one of the most kind of underrated toll takers on any team.
It will wear you down.
Especially with baseball, we were playing 3-game series. You're going to be flying all over the country here. You ECU is right now one of the top teams in the country. So they know that they're coming in. They're probably going to be ranked in the top 25 once all the official polls come out, and that takes a toll on a young team, be it mentally, physically, emotionally, and so being able to get their feet settled and everything early on here, that's going to be very important for their confidence and the morale just going down the stretch here.
For sure.
Yeah, I also think, too, just being at home early on, that could really help them, get ahead. And they had a 28-6 home record last year. So I think, getting that early on will really help them also get healthy and just, get off to a strong start in the season and really build their confidence as they move
Absolutely
on.
build their confidence.
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
as we kind of get closing statements here on TECspertZ, the baseball edition, expectations for this team. Obviously, we've talked a lot about last year's team. What do we think? I will go around the board and see kind of expectations of this team. What will they be able to accomplish here?
I think 47 wins from last year is a good way to set the tone. I don't think personally they'll get to 47 this year. Probably between 42 and 45.
Which is still a heck of a season for sure.
Probably win the conference again, barring any injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just
So you have them in somewhere in the 40s range, probably winning the conference.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that they'll win the conference again, but I think with the younger team and losing some veteran leadership in the team, I think they'll drop off in wins and probably go to still in the 40s and but in the more lower ends. But I think they'll still be a great team and probably win conference.
I think they're either going to finish 1 or 2 in conference, but I do think losing such important guys like Agnos, Packard, Brickhouse, Washer, and those guys, that is going to take a toll on the team overall, and they are very young, and I think that it is harder to win with a very young team, so I think they're going to finish, probably 35 to 40, but I think they will still have a strong season.
So you see a little bit of debuff in wins.
Yes.
As Daniel said, maybe 42 to 45, you see a little bit down.
I see a little bit lower than that, but I do think that with guys who they have guys returning like Hoover and such,
mm-hmm.
that they are going to be able to guide the younger guys there.
Right, so the youthful movement worries you a bit.
It does, yes.
Okay. And so kind of your infield looking around is not so many question marks. I mean, we know Ryder Giles, who was at third base last year, is going to go back to his home position really at shortstop. You have Connor Norby at second. It seems as though Jake Agnos' brother, Zach, will patrol third base, the hot corner. And then the outfield is kind of up for question other than Lane Hoover will probably be out in the outfield. Once Smallwood returns, he'll be out there. Christian Jane, Bryson Worrell. The names kind of continue. Burleson will have his share in the outfield as well. Behind the dish, you have Seth Cadell. For the most part, but we have a lot of interesting catching depth with Matt James and Ben Newton as well.
Yeah, and I actually just wrote an article about this. You can read it in the East Carolinian. 2 new JUCO guys, Matt James and Ben Newton, behind Cadell, who really has a chance to break out this year. And he's the only catcher right now on the roster with experience at this level. So it'll be really up to him to learn these new pitchers, all these new guys coming in, and guide them through the season. And really teach them the ropes and get them up to speed.
Yeah, and what's good is that there's kind of a lot of versatility and mixing and matching that Coach Godwin can do for sure. So we do like that. What do you guys think?
And having depth too within the lineup is really good, especially in traveling and stuff, and how big
barring any injuries, whatever may come about.
So that'd be really helpful for ECU too. If anything tragic happens, they'll have these guys able to step up, and the younger players get their chance.
I think that versatility is going to be probably one of their best weapons on defense. They're going to be able to make adjustments in different defensive schemes. They're going to be able to use, shift guys around, move them around. And if a guy does go down, that depth is going to be able to hopefully make it so that way there isn't such a big drop-off in terms of, you hate to say quality of play there. So
the next man up mentality kind of.
They got to have that next man up mentality because you never know what's going to happen in a long season like what baseball does.
Absolutely, 100%. I'm with you there for sure. Last thing, we'll go around and we'll close this up here on TECspertZ. Player to watch. I will start with you, Jess.
I think it's definitely going to be Alec Burleson. He's a junior now. He's got another year under his belt. He led the team in a lot of statistical hitting categories. Biggest one, again, being his on-base percentage at .370 last year. I want to say I'm really
over 90 hits, I believe.
Oh yeah, 91, led the entire team by I think almost 13 hits. I think the next one was around 78. So it's going to be really interesting to see where he goes from here.
I think the next Agnos brothers stepping up at third base. I'm interested to see how the younger movement steps up in ECU, and that's one I really want to watch out for. And because I would take a shift from like looking more at the younger side of the team, because I want to see how they perform and if they really help the development of the team as their careers go on.
Very good.
I'll go with a pitcher here. I mentioned him earlier, but Garrett Saylor has a really good chance to be a midweek starter.
Absolutely.
Got a fastball in the lower 90s.
Yep.
Good changeup, good breaking ball. So if he stays healthy, he's just a sophomore, so he can have a real good shot to be a depth starter, maybe even a long reliever if they need him to do that, to just eat up some innings and really provide some good quality pitching.
For sure, I think recently he's looked great, and he's been working his tail off, so I'm looking forward to Saylor as well. I'm going to go pitcher here as well. I'm going to go Jake Kuchmaner. Very curious to see here. He's going to start off on the Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, and curious to see where he ends up going from there. Will he become the Saturday guy? Will he even become the Friday guy? I know that he's very, very motivated to do well this season and kind of prove a lot of people wrong. I know his velo is a tick down, and people have concerns with that and wonder, but he has many pitches that he throws, many solid pitches, so curious to see how that runs there. So that will conclude our first Baseball TECspertZ chat, sports roundup here. Join us back here next time. Thank you, everybody.